Contractor at center of scandal over MTR construction lapses now found wanting over Macau-Zhuhai Bridge. More than 80 injured in grenade attack on rally held by Ethiopian Prime Minister. And Trump hits back against criticism of his administration's handling of migrant crisis.
Good evening. Leighton Asia, the contractor embroiled in recent MTR construction scandals, is under fire again, this time over the mega bridge to Macau and Zhuhai. Repairs are being carried out at the passenger clearance building after its roof was found leaking during heavy rains yesterday. Alvi Lung reports.
The amber rainstorm signal was hoisted when heavy rain lashed Hong Kong yesterday. Water made its way through the roof of the passenger clearance building at the Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macau Bridge. The Highways Department today confirmed that and said the wave-like roof is made of prefabricated components manufactured on the mainland. Parts as large as 60 by 25 meters were fitted on site last year.
Because these are prefabricated units, there are lots of joints. Therefore, it is rather usual to have some leakage along some of the joints. That all depends on workmanship, but nothing is perfect. Leakage only causes nuisance rather than a safety concern, and it could be readily dealt with.
The government stressed there are no structural problems and this won't affect the bridge's open date scheduled for later this year. Joints are now being repaired at the building, which houses the arrival and departure halls. It's part of a $8.4 billion joint venture led by Chunwo and Leighton Asia.
We are following up on the general performance of Leighton in respect of government contracts.
Leighton is the main contractor of the Sha Tin to Central link, with works that are believed to be subpar. El Milong, TVB News.
Well, police have been reminding people to start the July 1st rally at Victoria Park, but the police order is facing an appeal from organizers who had planned to start the march at East Point Road. Kanan Chu has that story.
Where to start the annual July 1st rally? This question has led to a standoff between organizers and the police. This year, the Civil Human Rights Front planned to start the annual rally at Causeway Bay's East Point Road, a prime shopping area. It came after the Leisure and Cultural Services Department rejected the group's application to use football pitches at Victoria Park, which is the traditional starting point. For the second year in a row, a pro-Beijing group has been given priority to use the pitches for July 1st celebrations. Instead, the front was advised by police to start the rally at the park's central lawn.
I am quite uncomfortable with using the lawn because when we try to use the Victoria Park's lawn like last year, there are a lot of risks that we will have encounter the opponent's party. Those people are just next to us, and we have to pass their entrance of the venue, so that at that time they have to stop the event.
As said, a hearing on their appeal will be held on Monday morning. However, he is not optimistic about the outcome. That's why rally participants are still advised to start at the central lawn as recommended by police. Otherwise, they could be considered taking part in an unlawful assembly. Police Commissioner Stephen Lowe stressed the force respects the public's freedom of expression but have made suggestions on the starting point to ensure public safety. He added that past experiences have already proved that Victoria Park is a more suitable choice to start the rally, instead of East Point Road, which is too narrow. Kaina Chu, TVB News.
Meanwhile, the police chief says his officers are looking into a complaint of sexual harassment. A woman claimed a male officer called and asked her out after taking her personal details during an ID check.
Our stance are very, very clear. We do not tolerate any officer committing any crime or committing any disciplinary offense. we will uphold the highest standards of integrity within the force. Apart this very, very small minority of officers committing these offences, 99.9% of my officers are very committed to their duties and working very hard every day to serve the public.
Well, Chinese smartphone maker Xiaomi is planning to raise up to $6 billion in one of the biggest global stock market debuts. Its Hong Kong initial public offering plan would become the world's second biggest Chinese tech IPO after Alibaba in 2014. Xiaomi is going to sell over 2 billion shares at somewhere between 17 and 22 Hong Kong dollars per share. The offering is set to be the first listing under the new exchange rules, which are designed to attract tech floats. The 8-year-old company is the world's fourth largest smartphone maker. Still, its founder, Lei Jun, is expecting slow growth in the smartphone market in the coming decade. Xiaomi is also making home appliances such as air purifiers and rice cookers.
Turning overseas, unidentified attackers launched a grenade attack today at a political rally in support of the Ethiopian Prime Minister. Addressing the country minutes after he was hurried to safety, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed said a few people had been killed. Officials later confirmed at least 83 had been wounded, but did not mention any deaths. The Prime Minister called the blast a well-orchestrated attack. He did not say who was to blame, but said police were investigating. The explosion in the capital, Addis Ababa, comes after weeks of sweeping reforms since coming to power earlier this year. This includes the release of political prisoners and the relaxation of internet controls.
U.S. President Donald Trump is pushing back against criticism of his handling of the country's immigrant crisis. Trump spent Friday trying to cast doubt on wrenching tales of migrant children separated from their families at the border, asserting they're not the real victims of the crisis. Amid outrage over an immigrant crisis that's being called a national moment of shame, Donald Trump is firing back.
Our first duty and our highest loyalty is to the citizens of the United States. We want safety in our country.
The Trump administration has been bombarded with condemnation over the family separation situation. So yesterday, an attempt to shift the conversation. Trump gathered families who lost loved ones reportedly at the hands of undocumented immigrants to push his message. Young migrants separated from parents are likely to be reunited, unlike the victims of murders.
You never hear this side. You don't know what's going on. These are the American citizens permanently separated from their loved ones. They're not separated for a day or 2 days. They are permanently separated because they were killed by criminal illegal aliens.
Trump's appearance came hours after he suggested that some of the heartbreaking stories of separation were phony. Federal authorities say about 9,000 migrant families have been caught on the border in each of the last 3 months. More than 2,300 children were taken from their families at the U.S. border in recent weeks. The national drama is also playing out on Capitol Hill.
Imagine being ripped away from your mother or father and not knowing if you're ever going to see them again, and then being placed in a detention facility with strangers. What must that sound like?
Liu was quickly told to stop playing the audio, which was obtained from a detention center. As authorities struggle to process and house the immigrants, sources say about 500 children have been reunited since May. On Wednesday, Trump signed an order to stop separating families, but in yet another abrupt reversal yesterday, Trump told fellow Republicans in Congress to stop wasting their time on immigration legislation until after the November elections.
Meanwhile, President Trump declares North Korea still poses an extraordinary threat. But as Trump renews sanctions against the nuclear-armed nation, critics insist his words don't back up that claim.
They've stopped the sending of missiles including ballistic missiles. They're destroying their engine site. They're blowing it up. And the big thing is it will be a total denuclearization, which is already taking place.
But that statement on Thursday doesn't match Trump's claim on Friday that North Korea still poses an extraordinary threat to America. So the president reauthorized economic sanctions against North Korea. Plus, Pentagon Chief Jim Mattis stated he's not aware North Korea had begun steps towards denuclearization and that detailed negotiations have not begun. Then at a campaign rally earlier this week in Minnesota, Trump told supporters that Pyongyang sent the remains of 200 American soldiers back to the U.S. on Wednesday. But in yesterday's meeting with the U.S. Secretary of State, Trump modified his statement.
And I understand, Mike, that they've already sent back or in the process of sending back the remains of our great heroes who died in North Korea during the war. And that's already in the process of coming back.
The fact is, no remains have been returned because Pyongyang has not committed to any specific timetable for the return. About 7,700 U.S. military personnel remain unaccounted for from the 1950 to 1953 Korean War. What has been agreed to is the U.S. and South Korea have suspended their shared military exercises. That includes the Freedom Guardian exercises slated for August. Those same drills last year involved 17,500 American troops and more than 50,000 South Korean troops. In more good news, delegations from North and South Korea agreed on Friday to allow families separated by the Korean War to reunite. The reunions are scheduled for August 20th through the 26th. Local Red Cross organizations will arrange the reunions, which will involve about 200 selected people from the two Koreas.
Still to come in our newscast. Local pharmacists critical of government handling of mold contamination scandal. Airbus threatens to pull out of Britain if no agreement is reached on Brexit.
日版可口可樂，掃描 QR Code 換冰塊，即有機會贏大獎。箍住夏天，冰鎮俄羅斯方塊。
Welcome back to TVB News. The batch numbers of the digestive drug that may have been contaminated by mold were revealed today. Pharmacists criticized the government, saying it's been too slow in responding to the mold scare. Pinky Wong with details.
Here's what to look out for if you have these digestive pills called Anxiplax. Here are the batch numbers of the products contaminated by mold. The information didn't come easily as it took the Practicing Pharmacists Association of Hong Kong more than 10 exchanges with the government to obtain them. That drew criticism from the association's president.
The government is the gatekeeper for medication safety and quality. This information needs to be released to the public as soon as possible. It has taken us nearly 2 days to identify the specific batch numbers through the different channels of government and the hospital authority. This delay is intolerable.
The association is urging the government to increase random sample testing of imported drugs. The Hong Kong Academy of Pharmacy said at the moment the government only tests medical drugs after they have already entered the market. Both groups think more should be done. Secretary for Food and Health Sylvia Chen didn't respond to questions that authorities were slow to act. She only played up the city's robust regulations.
Department of Health Drug Office have a very stringent measures in registration of drugs. I think this incident may not be an issue of the registration of drugs.
On another issue regarding the government's proposal to regulate e-cigarettes and other tobacco products, Chan said authorities are not ruling out a total ban depending on further medical evidence. Pinky Wong, TVB News.
A 45-year-old woman was caught red-handed at a jewelry fair. She's believed to have taken away a $1.1 million ruby. Police arrested the mainland woman at the Hong Kong Convention and Exhibition Center for suspected theft. With the help of a 47-year-old man, she is believed to have swapped a fake ruby for the real one at a booth. Police tracked her down after going through security camera footage and found 7 other fake gems on her. The man was later arrested at Lo Wu this evening.
Well, police have arrested 86 people during an anti-vice operation in Tsim Sha Tsui early this morning. Officers raided 3 bars which they think were controlled by a syndicate. The 86 arrested include 66 Thai women and 20 people from Malaysia. They were arrested for breaching conditions of stay, soliciting for an immoral purpose, as well as keeping a vice establishment.
And a quick reminder to those of you planning to use the Tates Carn Tunnel this weekend. Road repairs will take place from 10 tonight until 6 in the morning. During this time, the Kowloon-bound slow lane and the slip road leading to the Kowloon exit will be closed. Vehicles from the Kowloon-bound exit for Hammer Hill Road and Lung Chung Road will be temporarily diverted. More than a dozen KMB routes for Kowloon will be diverted. Authorities have recommended people use trains or bus services via the Lion Rock Tunnel or the Ching Sha Highway.
Overseas again, an aviation giant Airbus is threatening to leave Britain if the country exits the European Union without an agreement on trade relations. As Alan Booknia reports, it underscores the concerns of business leaders who complain the UK government is moving too slowly.
Airbus has been a prime example of how European cooperation could lead to success in business. The French, German and Spanish governments own 26.4% of the company, which was created through a merger of aerospace companies from those countries. Airbus employs about 14,000 people at 25 sites in the UK. It says it needs to know by the end of the summer what rules will govern its operations. While a deal needs to be struck by next March 29th, there is also a proposed transition period through 2020.
When that was announced, we welcomed it, but the clock has ticked on since that was announced. We would rather just get on with it and have some certainty. If anything, we'd much rather have a much longer transition period. The most important thing is to get rid of this chaos that's currently existing and have some certainty.
Britain's membership in the EU makes the supply chain easy because there are no tariffs or trade barriers between the 28 member states. But that will change, and the negotiations on what follows have been very slow, leaving the possibility that the deadline passes with no deal in place.
So if there's a no-deal Brexit, we will seriously consider future investment. We will seriously consider our footprint in the UK.
The Brexit partner at accounting firm KPMG says his biggest fear is that they end up with no deal by accident.
That through no deliberate sabotage of the process, we end up with no deal because that's the default position and it happens at the last minute. And the closer we get to that March deadline, that the more last-minute EU summits we start seeing organised in order to get some kind of deal done, the greater the chance of an accident throwing things out at the last minute.
If there is a no-deal Brexit, this would be catastrophic for this country and catastrophic for Airbus and our supply chain.
Alan Booknia, TVB News.
People considering their own Tour de France now have a new option. It's a California-based bicycle sharing company called Lime. It's just launched its fleet of electric standing scooters in the French capital. Users can find and unlock the scooters with a mobile phone app and leave them anywhere after their ride. Rentals cost €1 per ride plus a per minute charge. The scooters can travel up to 24 kilometers per hour and have a range of 50 kilometers. All scooters are picked up every evening at 9 p.m. for recharging and repairs. Lime says the evening pickup avoids clutter on the sidewalks and helps to cut down on vandalism. And from all of us, thanks for joining us.
Good night.